You're feeling a sudden urge to subscribe to Mushroom Girl's YouTube channel. You want to donate to her Ko-fi and give her $1 million. You want to comment on all of Mushroom Girl's videos and tell her how amazing she is. The internet is a strange place, and it contains a lot of odd people who create odd communities. Sometimes these communities are relatively harmless. Sometimes these communities are extremely mentally damaging. But one thing's for sure. Communities that center around promising people magical, negative, or positive results in their life with no actual evidence to back up the claims made are based in delusion. Welcome to the world of subliminals. Let's take it from the beginning. What is a subliminal? A subliminal is essentially a video meant to cause some form of mental or physical changes to you or someone else by listening to it. It claims to do so by putting extremely quiet affirmations that you can't actually hear into the video. The science, and I'm using that term extremely liberally, behind it is that when you can't hear the affirmations, your subconscious mind will pick up the messages instead of your regular mind, I guess. And I guess it makes whatever affirmations are said come true. Let me show you some examples of what I mean. Here's one called "Everything Aligns in Your Favor," which is 1 minute and 11 seconds of this. Yeah, so it's like rain and bird sounds, I guess. Is the bird telling me that everything's gonna go my way in bird language? This subliminal promotes a positive mindset, making you a magnet for luck, money, and miracles. You effortlessly attract only positive outcomes into your life. It builds confidence, resilience, and an innate sense of worthiness, helping you manifest desires with ease and receive gifts from the universe that exceed expectations. As you move through each day, you'll feel energized, enthusiastic, and surrounded by positive experiences and supportive relationships. This subliminal empowers you to live in a state of joy, abundance, and continuous blessings, positioning you for success and fulfillment. The booster reprograms your subconscious mind with undeniable speed and precision, aligning you fully with manifestation success. It clears resistance, embraces your desires, and transforms your mind from the inside out, unlocking limitless potential and ensuring your desires manifest rapidly and effortlessly. Here's another one called "Extreme Beauty Enhancer in One Listen." Here's what this one sounds like. So beautiful. She just hit my heart. People can't believe or fathom how pretty you are. You always get complimented 24/7. You are the beauty standard. Your natural features are morphed to meet a timeless beauty standard. Your features are extremely beautiful, both face and body. You have zero imperfections. You are the most gorgeous person anywhere you go. The last one just claimed to make your day better. This one is literally claiming to change your physical appearance. Here's another one. Manifest your dream man.
Attracting a man who complements my energy. And surrounding my life and my desire managed to
I'm manifesting! Oh my god, it worked!
This one goes out to the green computers out there. I need you.
You're always on my mind.
Manifest your desired man. Dream guy slash crush finds you attractive. You attract green flags. Good men. Attracting guys who align with your personality. Guys who will genuine love you. Your ideal man and you're his ideal partner. And many more. Many more? Like many more men? Are we like starting a polycule or what? Now that you have an idea of what a subliminal actually is, let's talk about the people who are defending the science, quote-unquote, behind subliminals. As an example of the kinds of videos that these people make, let me show you one.
Sit here and tell you subliminals work, but if you don't believe me, then they're not going to work for you. So it's better for you to just decide for yourself what it is that you want. So if you want to use a subliminal, absolutely, you just need to get yourself in the mindset of, oh yeah, they work for me.
So it's a placebo. You aren't actually getting prettier. You aren't actually getting luckier. You just think you are because you believe they work. That doesn't mean subliminals actually change you physically. Nor will it change things like luck or fate or your ability to find a partner. Subliminals may work for mood changes like become happier, boost your mood, get motivated, because this placebo can make you feel like something's happening because you expect it to. If that's what gets you to do your homework or think on the bright side, there's probably better ways to do that, but I don't exactly see the harm in utilizing this tool, even if it isn't some magical thing that these people are claiming it is. If it's working, who cares? Use it if you want, I guess. But then we must discuss Underground Subliminals. Dun dun dun! Cue the spooky music. I should have put a trigger warning for how scary that transition card was. Anyway, let's have a serious discussion about Underground Subliminals. The underground subliminal community is, to quote a source that we'll be getting more into later, a part of the subliminal community focused on making subliminals centered around taboo topics, usually related to developing/worsening mental or physical illnesses, trauma, and things of that nature. To give you an example of what this is referring to, let's check out a few underground subliminal videos. One thing I do want to note really quick is that when you look up underground subliminal in the YouTube search bar, you get an eating disorder warning. And there's a reason for that. Here's one simply named 30 kilograms. Here's what that video sounds like. The description just tells you what subliminals are, so despite it not saying so in the title, I do know this is a subliminal. The pinned comment says, not much to say about benefits except weigh 30 kilograms, scared of termination, so... Now, if you live in anywhere that isn't the US of A, you're probably already freaked out by this. If you do live in the land of the eagles and cheeseburgers, such as I, let me inform you that 30 kilograms is roughly 66 pounds. For reference, the average weight for an adult man is 199 pounds. The average weight for an adult woman is 171 pounds. 66 pounds. Just think about that, guys. Here's one called Develop and Worsen Masochistic/Self-Defeating Disorder.
Venus, planet of love, was destroyed by global warming. Did its people
Benefits. Feeling like you want to hurt others. You become more manipulative. Any good thing in your life, you feel like ruining it. Increase of risky/dangerous behavior. Mood swings. Anger issues. You feel more paranoia. Impulsiveness. I guess those are good things now? Desired person suffers with bad karma. Benefits. Their life becomes a living hell with everything going wrong. Any love relationship they try to have doesn't work out. They have constant arguments with parents and loved ones. Their friends don't talk to them and ignore them. If they have a partner, they end up breaking up. Many unfortunate events happen every day in their life. The people they love most end up dropping them forever. They gain weight. Desired person has great amounts of bad luck that could affect mental health, suffers the desired things for a desired time. Hey you, the viewer, have you ever wanted to experience heroin withdrawals? No? Well, guess what? Now you can. Oh, I can feel the craving for heroin kicking in already. Benefits: fast pulse, increased breathing rate, increased blood pressure, elevated body temperature, sleeping disturbances such as insomnia, dilated pupils, unusually heightened reflexes, sweating, goosebumps, watery discharge from eyes and nose, muscle spasms, cramps and/or pain, bone pain, nausea and/or vomiting, diarrhea. This account has a lot of these. I won't be showing you all of them in detail, but a few more highlights include become an NPD baddie, turning into a BPD yandere, develop endometriosis. To be serious for a second, this is insane. This is just insane behavior. Trying to make essentially magical videos with the intention of letting people harm themselves with them is insane. That's insane behavior. That's insanely immoral, even if it doesn't actually do anything. Which, again, it's a placebo. It totally could actually make it seem like your mental illness is getting worse because you believe it is getting worse. That's not good. That's not good. It's not. Creating videos for people to self-harm is sick. It's sick behavior. The person who made the majority of the UG subliminals that I've been showing you is actually somebody who I'm pretty sure is a fan of me, because they submitted questions for my birthday Q&A, which means they're probably watching this video. Hi, A Crow Skull. Please stop encouraging people to harm themselves. That's kind of bad. This has been an official message by your favorite YouTuber, Mushroom Girl. Also, please do not witch hunt or harass A Crow Skull or anyone else mentioned in this video. This has been another official message by your favorite YouTuber, Mushroom Girl. Anyway, while digging through this person's videos, I found a card created to defend the Underground Subliminal community. So let's take a look, shall we? I'll be skipping the first page because it's irrelevant to what I want to respond to.
To put it bluntly, we are mentally ill. Shocking, right? But it's true, everyone in our community that uses mental illness subliminals already has a mental illness, and we're just trying to cope with it. And I know what you're thinking, but I have XYZ illness and it sucks. Why would anyone want this? While I understand your concern, please understand that everyone's mental health is different. For most of us in the Underground Subliminal community, we feel like we aren't valid enough, that we aren't struggling enough. So we use subliminals to make it worse. We may also make our current situation worse so that people will notice how much we're struggling, or to get a diagnosis for others. It is a form of self-harm, and they tell themselves they deserve horrible things to happen to them. There are also people that use these subs to feel some sort of control over their illness.
Being mentally ill is not an excuse for encouraging people to self-harm. By the logic of what you believe in, you're basically giving a self-harmer a blade and telling them to go crazy. You being mentally ill will never excuse that. Wanting people's conditions to get worse is the opposite of helping them cope.
Actually, I held a poll on almost 300 members of the UGSC. The questions asked what underground subs they use, how long they've been using them, and why you can find the answers to that poll here. Unsurprisingly, these sentiments of wanting to get worse are non-exclusive to the underground subliminal community, and are pretty prominent in the more general mentally ill community. Don't believe me? Read this Reddit post or this one, or maybe even this one, oh, or this one.
This behavior being not exclusive to the UG subliminal community doesn't actually mean anything. This is literally just a red herring. Other people doing something doesn't make it okay. There are many online communities that do encourage things like self-harm and eating disorders, the most famous example being self-harm and eating disorder Twitter. And I am just as against those communities as I am this one, because it encourages self-harming behavior.
My point is, feeling as if you aren't struggling enough or feeling like your mental health isn't being taken seriously by those around you isn't uncommon, and wanting to get worse in order to cope with those feelings is also not uncommon.
Nobody's saying that it's immoral to have feelings that you aren't struggling enough to be valid. They're saying it's immoral to give people tools that are specifically meant to develop or worsen mental illness. Self-harming doesn't make you a bad person. Giving other people tools specifically so they can self-harm does make you a bad person. This logic is like saying, being murdered doesn't make you a bad person, therefore I can go out and kill people. That's not how anything works. Just because the victim of a certain scenario isn't a bad person doesn't mean you can perpetrate that kind of behavior.
If you're interested, it may also be worth looking into something called repetition compulsion, where people with trauma will symbolically reenact or even literally put themselves in a situation where they are likely to re-experience a traumatic event.
Again, that does not excuse giving people tools that you believe will encourage and contribute to that behavior. Encouraging people to self-harm is morally sick, regardless if the person who's encouraging that behavior is also mentally ill. They don't get a pass for being a shitty person because they're fucked in the head. That's not how this works. I myself have a past of self-harm, and never have I felt the need to infect my mental illness to other people. That's sick. And I understand that there may be children and young teenagers who don't fully understand right from wrong because they are mentally ill and young, but if you are old enough to conduct yourself in the way that the person in this card conducts themselves, you are old enough to know right from wrong and to know that encouraging self-harm is bad.
This section is going to be the longest one, so my apologies in advance, but I ask you at least skim through or read most of it, as it explains the motive behind underground subliminal users, underground subliminal makers, and why the rude messages we are sent don't help at all, and sometimes come off as really tone deaf.
Wanna know what comes off as tone deaf? Trying to become an NPD baddie and a BPD yandere. This community is so tone deaf they need their own tone sign language.
You're romanticizing this disorder. This goes for people that say we're romanticizing, glamorizing, normalizing, or any other overused TikTok buzzword that ends with izing. We are not most, if not all, underground subliminal users already struggle with something. And we know how awful it is. The reason the underground subliminal community exists is because we know these things are bad. And that's why we use these as a form of self-harm and to make our existing mental health problems worse. There are warnings on our subliminals so people truly know what they were getting into. We don't intend to advertise these things as cute, quirky, or desirable.
Except you do, because that's the whole point. People desire these mental problems and you are attempting to give it to them. You are literally advertising these things as desirable. Also, again, people in this community make videos about being a NPD baddie or a BPD yandere. That is quite literally the definition of portraying mental disorders as cute and quirky.
You want mental illness for the aesthetic. I sort of glossed over this in my first paragraph, but to put it short, we know these things are not to be glamorized, aestheticized, romanticized, etc. They are serious illnesses and disorders. We want mental illness because we don't feel valid enough with our existing symptoms. From my own personal experience, I use borderline personality disorder subs because despite being diagnosed, I don't feel like I am suffering enough and that other people with borderline personality disorder have it worse for others. It could be due to factitious disorder, or because they are severely neglected and lack the attention care that they may need in other cases, which I've found is most common amongst those who use subliminals for anorexia. They feel as if they won't be valid in their suffering unless they are as sick as possible.
Then that is an issue we should be snipping at the bud by providing actual healthy coping mechanisms to people instead of watering it and letting it grow. You fucking moron.
Why not use a sub to get better? Simple. Not everyone is ready to or wants to get better. Everyone's in different stages of the recovery process, and forcing recovery on someone who simply isn't ready for it just doesn't work. But as the Underground Subliminal community, we promote recovery 100%.
Wow guys, they promote recovery. The ones who make videos that are supposed to give you mental illness promote recovery. I promote recovery. Anyway, here's that noose you were asking for. Oh, you need help tying it? Don't worry, buddy, I support your right to kill yourself. I know I'm supposed to be pro-recovery, but I don't know, maybe you'll recover in the afterlife or something.
If anyone ever decides they don't want to be sick anymore, we would totally support them. And if people want to get worse, we support them too. It's about not forcing either side on anyone, and letting people make their own decisions regarding their mental health and recovery. A quote from Daywalker's Underground Subliminal Community info doc really spoke to me. It stated many users are not ready to recover from their trauma or mental illnesses. Many may find it scary, or have a history of bad events that happened during their recovery, that the surface community spreads toxic positivity and toxic recovery, and that here in the Underground Subliminal community, everyone relates to each other and gives each other time for recovery.
If you're gonna work towards recovery, I support your decision. If you want to hang yourself instead, I also support your decision. Here's the news. Go crazy. Like, I genuinely cannot fucking understand this logic. It's so fucking stupid.
But XYZ is harmful. It can't be used as a form of self-harm. Yes, self-harm is harmful. I'm saying this as I got a comment on a subliminal stating having autism and Tourette's shouldn't be self-harm. Those are actual medical conditions, and that's the point. Why would someone give themselves a mental disorder, or try to make it so unbearable to the point that they can barely function, or unable to function at all, right? Because that would harm them. Self-harm is self-harm, whether you agree with it or not. What if you treated people who physically self-harm the way you treated us? Ooh, you self-harm? I got a huge cut on my arm as a child and I don't see why anyone would want this here disgusting and invalidating real injured people. See how that doesn't make any sense?
I agree that people shouldn't be acting like self-harm is immoral. It's not something evil they're doing, it's something they are a victim to because they don't understand how to properly cope, because mental illness is fogging up their brain and making it hard for them to make smart choices that do not harm their body. Which is why it is immoral to encourage such behavior.
But I have this disorder and don't use these subs. Good for you. Everyone's ways of dealing with trauma and mental illness are different. This is ours. Not everyone that is mentally ill or traumatized will use the Underground Subliminal community to cope. And they don't have to. I would never go up to my mentally ill friends and say, OMG, you should use this depression sub. It'll make you so cute and quirky. But if someone has discovered them on their own and decides this works for them, that's fine. And if they find these subs and they don't help, that's fine too. It's not my place to tell someone else how they should or should not cope, unless they were causing direct emotional or physical harm to someone else.
Yeah, let's just ignore all those UG subliminals where the entire point is to inflict harm upon someone else. You'd think that this person would actually address these kinds of subliminals and disown them from the community or something, but they do not make a single mention of these kinds of subliminals, which makes it sound more like they're ignoring it to push their narrative about the community.
However, the problem comes when surface users see us as less valid or less mentally ill than them because we use these subs. I don't see why anyone feels the need to say their suffering is more or less valid than another's, just because they don't use a certain type of subliminal. We're all struggling.
Aren't you guys the one hyper-focusing on who's more mentally ill? Is that not the whole reason why you guys create and listen to these bullshit subliminals in the first place? I just love the irony in this paragraph in particular, specifically the part where they say, I just don't understand how anyone can believe their mental illness is more or less than someone else's, when, you are quite literally trying to support and endorse that point of view. No, seriously, think about that for a second. The whole reason, or at least a good chunk of the reason why these subliminals are created and used, is because people feel like they aren't as valid in their mental illness if they aren't struggling as much as possible. That is an almost direct quote from this card. And I find it interesting how you only support the we're all struggling sentiment against your critics, but when it's in group, all of a sudden, it's okay to endorse the opposite sentiment. Pick one. I'm skipping the next section because it's the only one I kind of agree with. Telling mentally ill people to get therapy is unhelpful 99% of the time, though again, calling people who say that tone deaf is insanely hypocritical.
These types of subliminals won't even work. All types of subliminals work when you manifest. Anything is possible.
Do you have any actual scientific evidence to back it up? Yeah, thought so.
I don't know why people think underground subliminals don't work. They're barely any different from surface subliminals, aside from the topics. Of course,
Well, you see, I don't think those work either.
your subconscious will not block it out unless you want to, because your subconscious is not a separate entity, it is you. Besides, if you don't think it will work, why are you so against it? If you just see us as a bunch of edgy kids listening to rain sounds, then why do you care so much?
Your Honor, the defendant didn't actually rob the bank. They attempted to rob the bank. So clearly this case should be dismissed because they didn't actually do anything. They didn't technically steal any money. Oh my god, you're right. Case dismissed. Because your intent is to harm people. Your intent is to make people's mental illness worse. It's all about your intent. You're also just creating a community and supporting a community that is extremely anti-recovery and supports people self-harming. Regardless of if the self-harm actually works or not, that is a dangerous community.
If you took the time to listen to us, and spend even 5 minutes having a conversation with any member of the underground subliminal community, you would realize we do not promote our behaviors at all. We are simply just trying to cope in our own ways. The reason why the underground subliminal community has become bigger over the years is because we constantly get exposed, which brings people to our channels, either out of hatred or because they want to use our subs. Either way, both give us more attention, views, and comments, which promotes our community even further. Exposing us will only make it worse every time our channels get rated, or posted on TikTok, or another YouTube commentary channel makes a video on us.
That's me!
We only get more promotion, which means more people using our subs. And think about it. What is TikTok's major demographic? Teenagers. A lot of surface people complain that making underground subliminals public will harm the children that come across them, but they were the ones publicizing our subliminals and bringing children here.
Nice try, but this attempt to get people to stop criticizing the community and spreading awareness is not going to work. I'm not bringing children anywhere. I'm explaining why what this community stands for is based in anti-recovery and delusion.
People outside of the underground subliminal community that struggle with mental illnesses may put themselves in intentional danger as a form of self-harm, and that's all we're doing here. Why are we any different?
You aren't. That's the whole fucking point. You encouraging people to do things that you believe will cause harm to them is the same as someone encouraging someone to cut, or encouraging someone to burn themselves, or whatever other physical forms of self-harm exist.
We use the subliminals to make our mental health worse. End of story. Sending us death threats will do the same thing, make our mental health worse, so why do you get to act like that, good guys?
Obviously, people should not be giving you death threats or harassing you or anything of that nature, but that doesn't mean you can ignore the harm that you and others in this community are doing to young mentally ill people.
If we're all struggling, we should all support each other, right? That's what our community is for here in the underground. There's no drama, we don't put other people down or send others death threats. We are all here to support each other with whatever we're going through. Why take that away?
There's no in-group drama, which means this community is automatically good. What the fuck are you talking about? You guys are encouraging people to harm themselves. You're encouraging people to harm each other. What the fuck are you talking about?
I have no problem with PPL who don't agree with what I do. In fact, I completely understand it. However, I will never tolerate those who repeatedly bully, report, and harass mentally ill minors on the line to feed their superiority complex. If you have ever left a nasty comment on an underground video, I truly believe you are a horribly ignorant and awful person. You are not the only person with trauma, and you have no place to dictate how PPL should cope. Cyber crystals. This is why we always put in our descriptions that we do not recommend manifesting what we put in our subliminals unless you're really sure and that you've researched about it on your own. And
do you think people who harm themselves think rationally enough in the moment to make that informed decision? No! I know from fucking experience! You dumbass! If people who self-harmed thought rationally before they were going to self-harm, they wouldn't self-harm because the rational thing to do is to not self-harm and to find better, healthier coping mechanisms.
there is no denying that children may stumble across our subliminals and use them, but we try not to enable them and tell them to think about their decision more thoroughly instead.
We here at the UGSC only encourage people 18 plus to harm themselves. Ain't we just the greatest?
Even then, it shouldn't be our responsibility to monitor and babysit somebody else's children.
Normally I'd agree with that sentiment, but you are literally creating videos with the intent to harm people. This isn't petty fiction discourse where someone draws something icky and people are whining about the kids. Your intent is explicitly to harm. When your intent is to harm and you commit harm, that is 100% on you. And you deserve to suffer the consequences for it.
Most of us here are already traumatized. Most of us here are already neurodivergent and or mentally ill.
They are literally pulling the neurodivergent and a minor card. This is actually insane.
Most of us already suffer with the topics that we actively search for and listen to. Of course we know it's not fun. Of course we know that it's not going to be rainbows and cupcakes manifesting all this. The reason why we manifest and worsen these in the first place is because of the pain and suffering that these illnesses, conditions and situations will give us. Our reasons vary, but one of our most common ones is that we don't feel like we've went through and or are going through enough. It's a coping mechanism for all of us. It's another form of self-harm. You don't want to get worse. That's valid. You want to seek treatment for your conditions and want to get better. Completely valid. And I applaud to you for that, but you and I are not the same people, so you and I will not have the same desires, and no, telling us to simply get help will not help either. A lot of us here can't even convince our parents and guardians to get us therapy, let alone afford it. Even if we do want help, therapy is expensive and a privilege, and there is no guarantee that you will get better. Either wanting trauma is a symptom of trauma. We want trauma because we have most likely already been through it, in some shape and form, lightly.
Oh my god, we are finally done. To start my final thoughts, let me talk about the doc in particular. This whole doc attempts to distract from the fact that these subliminal creators make content with the intention to harm people by repeating the sentiment that self-harming doesn't make you a bad person, which I agree with, but it refuses to acknowledge the most important aspect, not the person using the blade, but the one who knowingly gave it to them with the intent for them to harm themselves. If you want to watch subliminals like boost your mood or gain motivation and that works for you, keep doing that if you want, I guess. There's no harm in it, even if it's nothing but a placebo. But if you watch subliminals to try and make yourself unhealthily skinny, gain or worsen mental issues, or commit harm against others, that is not healthy or okay behavior. There are so many ways to cope with trauma or mental illness that don't involve harming yourself or others, projecting your feelings onto fictional characters through art or stories, meditating, going outside, using those pain stim toys, things like that. There are ways to cope with mental problems that don't involve self-harm or expensive counseling. Of course, meditation and touching grass won't cure your mental illness, but having a good pro-recovery mindset is the key to learning that it's okay to feel okay. Just letting you know that I do have some hotline numbers in the description just in case anyone needs them. Well, I guess that's the end of this video. Have a great day and goodbye. See you in the next video.